This is the new 6th generation Honda CR-V, and in this review we're running through everything that you need to know about it. But before we start, if you want to see lots more new car reveals and reviews, subscribe to our channel and go to whatcar.com for a great deal on your next car. The CR-V is Honda's best-selling model globally, and there's loads of changes to run through with this new 6th generation model, starting with the design. Now, it's not for us to say whether it looks good or not, but you can clearly see it is very different from before. So now it's got these thinner headlights, it's got this massive grille and a huge Honda badge on the front. It's got some sharper lines and it just generally looks a bit sportier than before. You only have one choice of alloy size with the CR-V. It's these 18-inch alloys, take it or leave it. You have a more heavily raked angle for the windscreen here. You've got squared off door mirrors. And in terms of dimensions, pretty much everything is bigger. So it's the same height, but it's longer and it's wider than the model that this replaces. So do you prefer the styling? Tell us in the comments below. As a large SUV, the CR-V is up against a lot of competition. It will be seen as an alternative to rivals like the Citroën C5 Aircross, Ford Kuga, Hyundai Santa Fe, Peugeot 5008, Toyota RAV4 and Mazda CX-60, to name just a few. The interior has had a pretty big makeover as well, so it's very different from before. Although you might recognise this gear selector layout that does look pretty similar to the old CR-V, but apart from that, you have a new look and echoes of the slick looking design that you find in the new Civic and in the new HR-V, like with this honeycomb effect on the dashboard here. You've also got this really nice knurling on these dials for the climate control, and isn't it great that we're in a new car and it still has physical buttons and dials for the air conditioning. They haven't just hidden it on a touchscreen infotainment system instead. So it should still be very easy to adjust that while you're driving. Now, the tech is also very different from before, and that was the most obvious area in the old CR-V that was in desperate need of improvement, because the infotainment system that that car was stuck with was, even by pretty poor infotainment system standards, terrible. The reason it was bad was because of the confusing layout, the low resolution, the sluggish response to your touch inputs, but now all of that is different with this new infotainment system. It's the same setup that you find in the new Civic and in the new HR-V, and we already know from those cars that this is so much better than what Honda had before. Now it's much slicker, it's got a much simpler layout to things, and you've still got some physical buttons on the side of the screen to help jump between different menus as well. So that is a big step forwards, and it's also a bigger screen than what you could get in the old CR-V. So now this is 9 inches. In the old CR-V, it was 7 inches. You also, as standard, get a big digital driver display in the new CR-V, and you can get a head-up display as well. So definitely a big step forwards in terms of tech inside the CR-V. And the quality in here also feels pretty good. You've got some nice soft touch materials around. There are some harder plastics here and there, but it still feels very good quality and it looks pretty nice as well. So compared to lots of other cars in this class, this now is a very impressive interior. It's also practical too, because you've got your cup holders here, you've got a big storage compartment here where your wireless phone charging is. Under this big central armrest, you've got another storage compartment. The door bins are a good size, and the glove box on this left-hand drive model at least also seems pretty big. So very different from the previous CR-V, but very good now in terms of the wider large SUV class. Now, the old CR-V was among the most spacious large SUVs out there, especially when it came to rear seat space. This new CR-V is even bigger, and in fact there's a 40mm increase in the distance between the front and the rear wheels. So you can see in these rear seats, legroom, well, it's like a limo back here really, isn't it? There's absolutely tons of legroom, loads of space under the seat in front as well. But these rear seats are mounted 15mm higher than they were before, and that's because the fuel tank now sits under here. And every CR-V gets a sunroof as standard. So what that means is headroom isn't quite so generous as it was on the old car. But you can see, sat in the back, sitting up straight, you've still got a decent amount of clearance above your head, as long as you're sitting behind this bulge in the sunroof here. So you might just find, if you are especially tall, if you're well over 6 foot, getting into the rear seats, you'll probably have to duck under this bulge here to get the extra headroom available behind it. But otherwise, it does still feel relatively open and spacious back here, if not quite as cavernous as it did in the old car. What you can also do with these rear seats is recline them, and they go back further than they did in the old car. There's 8 different positions you can put them in, and it's all controlled using a lever down by your side there. And while this is a very big, large SUV, there isn't a 7-seat option, so you can only have it as a 5-seater, and it's unlikely that we'll ever have a 7-seat version of the CR-V. Now, like the rear seats, the old CR-V already had an absolutely massive boot. Now, the new CR-V is even bigger. So it's grown from 498 litres of overall storage capacity to now a massive 586 litres of storage. And you can see it really is just a vast boot back here. There's also no loading lip at the front, which is very helpful. Yes, there are some wheel arch bulges either side, but still, this is a massive practical boot. Now, the interesting thing about the CR-V is that if you go for the plug-in hybrid version, you get a bigger boot than if you go for the regular hybrid version, which is the opposite of how it works in pretty much every other instance. The reason for that is the hybrid version of the CR-V has lots of the hybrid tech that's needed under the boot floor here, so you don't have any underfloor storage. But if you go for the plug-in hybrid, then everything is moved from under the boot floor to further up towards the front of the car, which means you get an extra 72 litres of underfloor storage, and it gives you this height adjustable boot floor as well. So that makes an already incredibly practical car even better. Now, one area where there hasn't been a huge change with the CR-V is under the bonnet, because if you go for the new hybrid CR-V, you're effectively buying a very, very similar setup to the old hybrid CR-V. But what is new with the 6th generation CR-V is now having the choice to get a plug-in hybrid version of this car. If you go for that, then you still get a very similar setup to the regular hybrid version of this car with a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, but the difference is you get a much bigger battery. So actually power is very similar between the two versions of the car, but the benefit of going for the plug-in hybrid is lower CO2 emissions, better fuel economy, as long as you keep the battery topped up, and the ability to travel on pure electric power. Now, officially, we've been told to expect a WLTP test result around 50 miles for the plug-in hybrid CR-V. Of course, in real-world driving conditions, what you actually achieve will be much less than that, but if we are going on that official figure that we've been given by Honda, then this should be very similar to what the RAV4 plug-in hybrid delivers as well. Like before, there are sport, normal and economy driving modes, but what's new is that there is now a snow driving mode. There's a towing mode as well. Now, the regular hybrid is 4-wheel drive, the plug-in hybrid is 2-wheel drive, but it's the plug-in hybrid that has the greater towing capacity. If you go for the regular hybrid, it's up to 750 kilograms, which is the same as the old model and really not much use at all. But now with the plug-in hybrid in towing mode, you can tow up to 1,500 kilograms, which is much better and comparable to what you can also tow in the plug-in hybrid versions of the Cougar and the Hyundai Santa Fe. If you go for the plug-in hybrid, you have some control over what exactly the battery is doing. So for example, you can force it into pure electric mode if there's enough charge in the battery. You can get it to hold the charge that it has if you want to use it later on in your journey, for example. And you can also put it in charge mode, which uses the engine to charge the battery itself, which would obviously have quite a big impact on your fuel economy. There's also regenerative braking with the plug-in hybrid that you can adjust the severity of using the paddles on the steering wheel. When you need to charge up the plug-in hybrid, by the way, a flat to full charge takes around 2.5 hours. There's also been a boost in the safety equipment which comes with the new CR-V. It gets the latest generation of Honda's active and passive safety tech, and part of the new tech includes the introduction of a camera display on the digital screen in front of the driver, which shows your blind spot when you indicate, something we've already seen from Kia and Hyundai. So there's lots that's new with the 6th generation CR-V, but none of that is going to come for free. The official pricing hasn't been announced yet, but we've been told to expect a starting price around £40,000 for the regular hybrid CR-V, going up to £50,000 for the plug-in hybrid CR-V, which is quite a big price jump from the old model, and essentially means that the most expensive CR-V from the previous generation would still be cheaper, probably, than what the cheapest version of this new model is. The full pricing and specification is yet to be confirmed, but those estimates we've been given do seem pretty punchy and would put the new CR-V above the RAV4 and lots of other mainstream SUV rivals. But the previous CR-V was a very good SUV, so if this new model is even bigger and better, then there's every chance Honda's biggest seller could become even more popular. So that is everything that you need to know about the new Honda CR-V. What do you think of the car? Tell us in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to see lots more new car reveals and reviews, and go to whatcar.com for a great deal on your next car.